What do you think the biggest issue facing our city is?
I would say our infrastructure. I think that has really, really been one of the biggest things that, we've got roads, we've got sidewalks, we've got things that have not been dealt with for over 60 years. We've got still lead in our pipes. And I know that many municipalities across the country are facing that, but as everything ages, as you see our recreation, everything is aging at the same time. So it becomes unaffordable for taxpayers to pay for all of that. And so I think that's the issue when it comes to deciding around the budget. How do we balance all of those things and trying to still remain a city that can provide all of the services as well? And that comes back to, providing the core services that we're supposed to provide as well. I think the other thing that's facing us obviously is the affordability piece. I think, again, everything is on the rise. Food, gas, all of that. So people are actually, very, very, I think, worried. And I think the economy is very fragile, coming out of COVID. But I think people are very stressed about their finances. So again, as we're, again, looking at these big projects, really it's concerning to residents because it's, again, how is it paid for? There's only one taxpayer.
So what would you do about that? You've been a councillor for the Catalyst Committee and a number of big projects from aquatic centres to arenas. What do we do about those projects and the basics, if you will?
Yeah, I think the reason I am running is we do have to get back to those core services. I think that in the last 4 years, I would say that, we have lost our way in the fact that when we look at our parks, we look at snow removal, we look at roads and all that. I think we have to get back to that, to saying that is our priority. Yes, we also need these projects at some time down the road. We can't, Stefani, afford them all at once. So to build a pool, and now we've got a library that we've increased our debt limit, which I did not support, again, I think it's too much to bear for the taxpayer. So I think we need a plan and we need to prioritize those. One of the things I said from the Catalyst Committee when I sat on there, I said, any project that comes forth has to come forth with some funding and a financial plan to understand to the taxpayers how this is going to be paid for. Well, you can see the pool. We're still struggling on that. It started at $160 million. We're now at $245 million, which, $145 million has to be paid by the taxpayer. And again, this past Wednesday was, how are we going to pay for it? Well, it's a mill rate increase. That's what it's going to be over time. And again, it becomes very unaffordable. So we have to balance that. And that's going to be some of the tougher decisions. So the renovation to the Lawson was opted out. And again, I think that's something that also should have been considered.
Over the time that you've been on council, when did you begin to realize you were maybe approving too many Catalyst Committee projects?
Well, when the pool came at $160 million, and that was in 2023, that was the first Catalyst project, I absolutely said, you know what, for $160 million, yes, we can do that, but we'll find a way. But you know what, to go up 50% to the $245 million, when I asked the delegations that came forth, and it's hard to say no to people that are so passionate about, we do need a pool. I know we do, but we have to think outside the box to look at other options, I think, when it comes to that price. So, when I asked, what other cities have a pool like we're going to build? You know where it is? It's Winnipeg, Vancouver, Montreal, Edmonton, all cities with over 1 million people. So really, shouldn't we be looking at maybe downscaling that pool somewhat? And so at least it's an option.
And what do you think then that would mean for other projects like the library, possible multi-use arena, and other things?
Again, so with the library, when they came forth, they were actually just looking for a mill rate increase. And it was one of the councillors that actually said, we should increase our debt limit and go to the Saskatchewan Municipal Board to increase that for the library. And again, the worry is, and I see that as you've got a credit card and now you're going to try and pay that debt off with a credit card, which again, is, to me, and I use the words, I said it is financially irresponsible to do that. But when we look at this moving forward, I think if we were to reduce reduce the pool, at least it could be an option down the road to say. But I would say to any of those coming forward, if I'm the mayor, you can't say yes to everybody, but you can say, listen, we do have to find a way to get some sponsorship, to get some, and I use the Shaw in Saskatoon. There's a naming right there. That is something that our administration, when we knew this pool 4 years ago was coming forth, that should have been already in the workings. You don't come at the midnight hour and say, well, we're putting an RFP out now, and we're actually going to see if we can get someone to find a sponsor for this pool or a naming rate on this pool. So, but if we did lessen, to your question, if we did lessen the amount, we could then look at the possibility of a library or some possibility of a refurbish or, going into the bay or other options. But right now, it's very difficult to look at all of it.
What would you say to people who say, well, what have you been doing for the past 8 years to hold the line on spending in big projects?
Well, we haven't really put any big projects forth. I would say that. But I would say that when I ran in 2016, I ran on being prudent with the tax dollar, and I have been. I have reduced the mill rate at some of the budget meetings. I have, and that was also to support, finding efficiencies. But it was also, I think, one of the other pieces is looking at how actually do we, in the last 8 years, engaging the public. And again, it comes back to looking outside the box for different ways to finance things. And I think I realized, I would say, when we started, and hearing from the public, that after COVID, even the pool, they were saying, we can't afford a new pool. And yet, from the greater piece of the city, we know a pool hasn't been built in 50 or 60 years. So you have to balance that off. So do we need a pool? Yes, we do. But I don't think we need to build the Taj Mahal. I've said that at council, and I think that we have to live within our means. And I've said that many times over the council.
Could you change this now if you became mayor, given that the last council before the election vote was to go ahead with the pool?
Well, I did put forth a reconsideration motion for the pool. The staff have said that, they have moved forward. There's been a lot of work done in this last year, that kind of thing. One of the things that concerned me was we were always told that the Lawson, to get the ISIP funding, it had to be replaced like for like. So that's why the Lawson had to be torn down. And so when in August, they came back and said, the government said no longer that has to be. And I said, oh, well, okay, that's great. That could be an option, that we could renovate the Lawson and then look at other options for funding if that was an opportunity just to buy us a little more time. And that had failed. So the reconsideration motion does still stand. It would still be on the agenda. But I would absolutely like to look to see, again, have some time to look, if I am the mayor, find out is there any regional dollars there, economic dollars, to see if there is anything, and also to see if there is an option to look at doing the renovation to the Lawson. But again, I think it depends on how much work has been done.
What do you think the key to a safe and vibrant downtown is?
Having more people downtown, and that means having people living downtown. I have said this for many, many years. Again, I think I would love to see even a small university. I spent some time in Quebec City, love Quebec City. I spent some time in Halifax. All of these, they have little colleges there. So if we were able to have some type of an atmosphere where it was even a smaller university or a smaller college to attract some young people or people to live downtown, that could be a possibility. But the more that we put downtown, everybody still leaves at 5 o'clock. So we actually need something where people could live and have this vibrancy, and usually young people bring that vibrancy. So that would be some of the things that I would absolutely like to work on.
And you think the grocery store would follow the people as opposed to the grocery store, because that's always 100%. Our chicken and egg kind of situation.
100%. And I spent some time in Edmonton, and they have these little express grocery stores. That's all we would need.
How do we pay, and this seems to be the crux of your campaign, how do we pay for what we need and want without it costing too much, since cities really only have one main source of revenue, and that's us property taxpayers?
That's prioritizing what we have to do and having a plan of how we're going to pay for it.
And what would you tell people about why they should vote for you?
I have lived here for 45 years. I love our city more than anything, and I love the size of our city. And so I think, you know what, I really want a city that we can be proud of again. And the beautification of a city and build community, engaging people. We have the most amazing people, nonprofits that do amazing work, the cultural groups. And so I think just bringing that all together and telling our story, I think is really, really important.
I know that you've got family who works in development. How will you ensure voters don't perceive any kind of conflict of interest?
Yeah, great question. You know, absolutely. I will recuse myself. I have recused myself. And even when it's been perception, I've recused myself. So I will always make a public statement as well to do that and continue to do that.
Is it harder when you're mayor than a councillor to not be involved in everything that might possibly have to do with?
I don't think so. I think, you know, you make it clear from the start with my team of councillors who are elected that that's why we have a deputy mayor and an acting deputy mayor. So I think all of that is possible.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you so much for having me, Stephanie.